Hi, I'm Macy.
And I'm Missy.
We're best friends
and business partners. And each week, we're going to bring you a quote that inspires us, and we're going to talk about it.
Join us as we break down our favorite impactful messages for leadership and share how you can apply them to lead with confidence and purpose.
Get ready for a fun and authentic journey into leadership, life, and everything in between.
Well, hey, bestie.
Hey, bestie. Great to see you.
Yes, good to see you as well. And today is going to be extra special because we're hanging out with two people, another dynamic duo who are truly living examples of faith, leadership, and purpose, even in seasons of tradition. Or transition.
Yeah.
Not tradition, transition.
Well, I know it's just because we're excited, Macy. It's our first time ever. We haven't had two guests with us. It's going to be fun. And listeners, you're going to love them. Trip and Rebecca Healey have been pastoring and serving others for years. And right now, they're in an intentional season of rest. That sounds amazing. And these two have 7 amazing kids. Seriously, 7.
7.
And they have been trusted voices in their community for a really long time.
I mean, I'm having a hard time getting over the 7. I could barely manage 2.
Me too.
Oh, and we're talking 7. My God. Okay, so let's get started.
Agreed.
All right. Welcome, Trip and Rebecca Healey. How are you both today?
Hello. How are you guys?
We're awesome. We're really excited about this one.
We are so excited for this conversation today.
All right. So
I'm the quiet one of the group, so I'll let
lies.
I'm gonna let him talk the most.
No, lies. You're gonna talk equally. So what we would love for you both to do before we dive into the quote, which actually is more than a phrase than a quote, but we want our listeners to get to know you. So share with us some background so our listeners feel like they can get to know you as we're going through the episode. Who are you? Who are the Healeys?
So I'll give my piece real fast, and then she'll fill in all of the gaps.
As she always does, Trip.
Yeah, we're this.
Yeah, got gaps, and I got gaps.
All right, fill them in for us.
Together, we got no gaps. Yeah, that's Sylvester Stallone for you. I think I was Rocky 3.
Stop it! Nobody cares about your quotes.
Maybe 4.
You guys are a trip. No pun intended.
So I've been pastoring for the last 24 years. Graduated from seminary back in 2001 and have been in full-time vocational ministry since then. Youth ministry for 11, and then we planted a church back in 2013. Right in the midst of having twins.
Lots of babies.
7 children now.
It's very blended.
We adopt, foster.
I know, you guys are amazing.
Love it.
No, we're not amazing. We're crazy. We're crazy, Macy. That's what you say. But we love it. We love having people. So we really do.
And 10 of us actually live in this house currently.
Oh, right now still.
Yes.
So I don't think I realized that.
It's multi-generational. Like it's more like a compound. So like our house it has like a whole like other suite on the other side. So our daughter and her husband and her daughter, and then they have one on the way. They live on the other side. So it's the whole fam. It's a big crowd here.
Yeah. About to have
crazy
2 kids.
But I'll tell you this, as far as we have always loved pouring into people, both in ministry and just connecting with people. Like it has been something, I mean, I was born talking, like, from the womb. So just checking on people and connecting with people is something we love. And really outside of ministry, we met you guys a few years ago, and it's always been dreaming about how we can friend to other people and what's next, always thinking ahead, like what's the next step. So that's really something that gets us excited and kind of who we are as people. And just, we love to have community around, like family and friends. Like we just are like, we really enjoy having a big community.
Yep.
Well, thanks for sharing. Now, each week we pick a quote that we feel fits our guests. And this one, well, it seems like it's made just for you two because of where you are in your lives right now. And here it is. If you don't like where you are, move. You are not a tree.
I just love it. I think it's such a good one.
I know, I do too. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation. And so let's just dive right in. Let's talk about it. When we want to know, like, when you guys hear this quote, what comes to mind for you, especially thinking about the season that you're walking through right now?
Yeah, so I guess it'd be appropriate to describe briefly what that season is.
Yeah. Intentional
rest.
Yeah, intentional rest being that I'm actually stepping away. I've stepped away from, just in the last couple of months, from full-time ministry, even though that's what I've done. That's all I've known up to this point in my life. And I think it'd be real easy to think of this as midlife crisis. I think that's why people call it that. Because it tends to happen around now. It's kind of like it's like a now or never moment is how it feels. Because, when I imagine, how much longer I'm going to be able
Lord
to,
willing.
be super useful. It's like, okay, so the next, 20, 30 years? I mean, it's like, and that's kind of what I've done so far. It's, is this what I want to do for the rest of that? And even then, it's wondering, in 10 years, what if we wanted to spin things and change things up? Like, is it okay? Do we have permission to do that?
I'm giving you permission. It's okay.
Yeah. And honestly, I think in the culture that we're living in now, I think it's just become much more prevalent, much more tangible for people to imagine it.
Yeah.
Maybe to a fault.
Mm.
I think it there's just a fine line. That's what I'm finding out. That's what I'm kind of figuring out. I think, because I don't want to feel stuck. I don't want to feel like I'm having to do something because it's what I've always done.
Yeah. Yes.
That's dangerous on the one hand, but on the flip side, I also don't want to just feel discontent because, I'm going through a difficult season, or it's because I'm tired, or, maybe there just needs to be a shift in roles within the same, organization, whatever it may be. It may look different and more nuanced, depending on who you are and where you are. So I think that part.
I think for me, like listening to him, I think personalities are so important when you know about the feeling of stuck, right? Because for him, he's been doing this for 24 years, 25 years in ministry. And so like to change is big because this is all you've known. And we don't want to change for the sake of change, like just to say we did. You've got to be running towards something, which is why when we started training and thinking and dreaming about the future, we didn't make any decisions too quickly. But I think what happens and why this quote is so awesome is because I think a lot of times you see it, people in organizations who are not in a position or a role they should be in because they're just stuck there. They've been doing it forever. They can't think of anything else. The organization doesn't know what to do with them. And so you end up just saying, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And like, that's why people clock in, clock out for 30 years and never really find their calling or their purpose.
I think too, though, sometimes like the hardest part of the seasons is the waiting part, like the middle. Missy and I call it the middle. I think it was Charlotte Gambrell wrote a book about the middle, and Missy and I have done teachings about like the middle is the hardest part because you're not here and you're not there. You're just in the middle.
You're waiting. Yeah.
The hardest part of any season. Yeah, it's exactly.
But you guys took action.
Yeah. And I think taking action sometimes, like, it sounds good, right? It sounds empowering. I'm going to take action, but it's really hard to put into practice. Why do you guys think it's so difficult for people to move? I mean, Rebecca, you hinted to it a little bit, but why do you think if people know that they're not supposed to be there, wherever there is, they know they're not supposed to be there, why do you think it's hard for people to move?
If they know. So
If they know. So yes, they know.
that's
They've been
assuming
what
they've
Rebecca
got,
said, right?
yeah.
They've been clocking in and out for 30 years. It doesn't feel good. They know they're not supposed to be doing it. Why aren't people making the move?
I think number one is because we don't know what is next.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we want that security of knowing what's next, especially, I mean, good gracious, like if you've been somewhere and you've got that pension and you've got good health insurance and it's taking care of your family and, it's taken you this long and you've gotten multiple raises, to think like it feels like a step backwards.
Yeah.
And it does. Like I am speaking personally from experience right now. It feels like a do-over. It feels like starting over. It feels like you're having to figure it all out again. It's like, well, do I need to go back to school? Like, why did I go to school? What have I been doing? Instead of seeing everything that has happened over the last 25 years as the foundation, as the building blocks, as, and something somebody said to me just a couple of weeks ago, and it really struck me. He said, and this was an older pastor, he's retired now, but he was kind of speaking into me because I was like flailing. It was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, Trip, he said, God hasn't shown you yet what you're going to be remembered for.
Oh, that's
a
good.
tweetable.
If only we tweeted.
It's not even called Twitter anymore, but
and I'll be honest with you, I started crying.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I always have this, I don't know, I guess I'm just it's weird because I'm very much a planner. I like, organization, but I love change. Like I love change. I mean, I've moved to different cities without knowing people, and maybe I was a little bit younger, starting over in careers. I don't know. I think it's exciting. I love what you guys are doing.
Well, there's an excitement factor, I think, to it, Macy, but it's that fear, right? But I always say when you have that fear and excitement and when they kind of collide, like that's the fertile ground that something
you almost know it's the right
going
thing
to happen. Yes. And I would say that you both made a really brave decision to step back from pastoring in the season to see what was next. I made a really hard decision. I never thought I would do anything but teach school when I was a little girl. And I changed and had a totally different career, had a franchise for children, did other things. And then I made another big transition. So I could go back and point to how I knew when it was time to move, but this isn't about me. How did you guys know it was time to move, so to speak?
That's a good question. That's the $1 million question.
I'll start with several years ago.
Okay.
When we planted the church and then we transitioned into a new space and we were getting ready to get into a building, I could just see probably 3 or 4 years ago, COVID was like, things slowed down enough for us to breathe and go, what do 20 years look like for us? What does it look like 20 years from now? And that's a long way.
It is.
As fast paced as we live with 7 kids, and like, I just felt like 20 years is going to be here in no time at this pace. And we need to be sure we're like in the trajectory of where we want to be going.
Sure.
And we still love the local church. Like we still both passionately love the local church and know that community and local church, but we both had such a passion for leaders and people of influence. Like we had connected with people and we're like, oh, this is so much fun, but we don't have time to do this. Well, I'll tell you, you say like, how did you get there? Time, because a lot of people make the decision and they pick up and move their life. We've been praying about this and dreaming about this for a while.
Well, since I met you, and that was in 2019.
Yes, we have been dreaming about this season.
Was it really?
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
COVID. Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time flies.
That's been a long time. So, my brain works in bullets, a little bit. And so I think as you go, some things begin to crystallize as you look back, of what kind, and it may be different for everybody, but I think maybe there's some basic principles to this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not going to always be true for everybody, for all the listeners, you may be because everybody feels this at some point. Everybody feels stuck a little bit,
Sure.
I've been doing this forever. And I think one of the indicators is to, and this is what it was for me. I tried to imagine myself in 10 years or in 20 years doing what I was doing, and I couldn't imagine it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Like I could make myself imagine it, but I really couldn't see myself. I was like, am I really going to be doing this? Because there were just parts of it that aren't just hard, because there's parts of pastoring that are hard for every pastor. But it was really hard for me. Things that I never really overcame. That never became just super, super duper natural and easy, and just sermon preparation. And that's hard for everybody, because it literally is like you're in labor every week trying to give birth. It's like every single week. And I apologize, I'm speaking with 3 women here,
Yeah, what do you know about that?
Yeah.
Nothing.
I've heard that it is like similar to that.
It's nothing like it, Trip. Nothing.
There is a sense of pain that goes into it every week, and I just never I adjusted to the pain, but I never got to where I was okay with it, where I actually enjoyed it. And
20 years later.
And so that was a little scary for me. And what that does, when you try to think and you can't imagine 10 or 20 years down the road doing what you're doing, that's when you feel that's scary.
Yeah.
That's when you feel stuck. It's like, oh, well, what am I going to do? And then I think another one, and this is, kind of along the same lines. It's this is kind of twofold. First being you lose vision for what's ahead next. Because when you're in any job, in any position, if there's not some vision in front of you, it just lacks some excitement.
Sure. You have to know where you're going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always
what you're
like
moving toward.
Right. Like you can't get in a car and just go on a road trip. Like you're not going to know where you're going. Like
and you wouldn't even be excited.
Right. And you're going to be like, am I supposed to be here? Like, I don't know. Is this really where I'm headed? So I love that there needs vision. What's the second part?
Kind of gives you that, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be super exact, and you don't have to. I mean, it sure helps. Like that's really nice. But it may just be that 1 year, 3 year, 5 years down the road, having something that you're aiming for. But then when you lack vision, the day to day, you just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, there's nothing exciting about it. Where am I going? What am I doing? Right? It just becomes the blah.
It becomes some of the things that the first 10 or 15 years really in ministry for me that I sort of thrived in. The details, the nitty gritty, the reinventing this, making this better, make it better, make it better. That's always, just like a mantra for me. I lost that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of after COVID is when that really, we were having conversations before that, but I really noticed because we had to, it was like starting over. And for church leaders, if there's any church leaders listening to this, they know what I'm talking about. You weren't real sure what the future was going to look like. And then you had to kind of rethink everything. And I just didn't have it in me.
And I'll tell you this as his wife, but also as his partner, like we do this together. For me, it was when I realized he was getting excited. So we started doing this other emo preacher thing and I watched him get excited. Like it was like, he would start content creation and different things. And I'm like, oh, he's loving this. And that's when I realized that's where the whole, you need to find your niche. You need
reevaluate.
And we need to reevaluate and get you in a position where you're thriving.
Yeah.
I want to ask a quick question because I wonder, kind of the story that you were portraying of what happened is similar to what happened when I was teaching school. Like that's all I'd ever wanted to do. And then I got into it and I was having to focus on standardized tests and all these things. And there was a level of disappointment. Like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's why the excitement maybe isn't there. The vision leaves because you're like, I'm stuck here and this isn't what I thought I signed up for, maybe.
Yeah.
So all of that, and this is kind of where I came to, when all of those things begin to happen, you stop leading. Still the point leader, the buck stops with you,
but you don't care enough, really.
You check out.
And it's why I started beating myself up. I felt a little bit like a failure. Like I don't care enough. I'm not doing it. Something's wrong with me. Not maybe God's leading me somewhere else. It's just I'm not a good leader because I wasn't leading, because I didn't want. It was like, I hope everybody picks up the slack. I hope they work on our assimilation process. I hope that they're willing to work on how we organize our teams. I hope that, because I didn't even want to have a conversation about it.
But I'm going to say the contrary, Trip. I feel like that's what makes you such a great leader, is the fact that you felt like you weren't like there are leaders out there that aren't leading their people that have no awareness of the fact that they're not leading their people. The fact that you had the awareness of, I'm not really leading here. Something's wrong. I know you blamed yourself. But let me ask you this question, because we were just talking a little bit about this. I want to go deeper. Stepping into the unknown, it does require trust, right? Trust in yourself. Like, I got this, I could do this, but also trust in God's timing and provision. Like, what do you think? And Rebecca, I'll ask you first, like, what role has trust played in your current season of rest? Like, who have you trusted? How is that like, what does that look like? Hey, bestie. We just got some amazing feedback from a client we recently worked with. Their team's morale and engagement skyrocketed after our training.
I love hearing that. Companies are seeing higher retention, lower turnover, and even increased revenue and productivity because leaders are investing in their teams.
And communication and team efficiency are improving, which we know leads to better customer service and huge cost savings. If you want these results, check out our website, Mpactful Messages, to learn how we can help you.
And for more leadership tips and strategies, sign up for our newsletter, mmleadershipnews.com.
Yeah, that one is a loaded question. I can tell you, without faith for us, not just because that's the job we've done, but like, if I didn't see big picture faith and our trust in the Lord, this would have been
disastrous.
Disaster. Right. We wouldn't have been able to do it. He would have had to keep working. Yeah. I think that's what happens. He would have had to keep working because we got to worry about the money and that job. And he would have been a bad leader in a bad position. Me too, because I would have been bitter that we were stuck there. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So it's only because we trusted that the Lord was in this that we felt like this is it. And we both have a strong feeling that a job, like, it is important. Your job is that's huge, right? Like, but it's about the people you work with. It's about, are you in the right role in your position? Like, and if you're not, figure it out. Because I'm telling you, if I didn't trust the Lord in this, I would have never been like, let's quit and figure something else out. Are you kidding? Like, no way.
Right.
No way.
Yeah.
In fact, that was kind of her response years ago, because it was hard. I was in a different place. And so I think, there you go. There's another indication, is if you're married, there needs to be, if your faith is aligned anyway, sometimes we're, if we're unequally yoked, then you may be on one page and they're on another.
Sure.
But if that's the case in our marriage, I take that. Now, she takes time, it takes some time for her anyway. When it comes to change or, me thinking or visioning, because I'm big picture, I'm vision, I can see things, what it could look like, when what could be becomes what should be, in my mind, that's when that's something I want to run toward. Well, it takes her a little bit longer. Well, for me, that's an indication, that maybe the timing isn't quite right.
That it would take Rebecca too long, you mean?
Well,
no, just that he needed to slow down. Like
I needed to wait.
Okay, gotcha.
Because the time wasn't maybe right because she wasn't there with me.
In other words, you're listening to this podcast and you hear us talking and you're like, yes, this is me. I hate my job.
But
please do not go quit your job today and not tell your spouse.
No, 100%.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, when my husband was leaving, his 6-figure corporate job because he wanted to start a nonprofit that he was going to start on a volunteer basis. And he came to me and said, I want to quit this job and I want to start a nonprofit. And oh, by the way, I won't be getting a salary. I had to be on board or it would have never happened. Right? Like you absolutely need the support of your spouse. But what I would also say, and Trip, I think that you said this, I'm just recapping really, is you've got to give your spouse some time to take a deep breath and be on board because they may not see the vision and they may not be having the feelings that you're having, but a conversation, of course, has to happen.
So let me ask you this. When you made the decision to shift, and we could call it when you made the decision to take a leap of faith, right? Because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Did you have any fears around trusting what that next step would look like? I always think as I think about that next step and having a leap of faith, I think of when they were crossing the Jordan River and they had to take that step first. They led with that leap or step of faith. How did you work through those? What were they?
They're still here.
I'm like, wait, this is perfect because we're in it. We still have that.
Sure.
We feel such.
But you did it away. You did it anyway, which
you did it anyway.
Did it afraid.
We did have to do it. I will tell you though, it's scary, but if you're we both are taking steps, that's the part is taking that next step.
Yes.
Because it wouldn't be good to just quit and be like, oh no, that would be terrible. But it's that, what are we aiming towards? Because we have to self-lead, right? I have to lead myself right now. He has to lead himself right now. I can't expect that we're feeling the same things in this transition.
Yeah. And
we're not. So it's that knowing that hey, it was scary. My advice for people in that season of transition, or maybe they're in a role in a company that, you're like, I don't really fit here, but what else am I going to do? Dream, pray, vision, man. I mean, I'm telling you, this is not something we decided overnight.
Yes.
And sometimes God gives you a little kick in the pants. I mean, that's the funny part is when this all started, really the thing that we are definitely going to transition was we got into that new building last fall. This is something we've been dreaming about for 11 years, having our own space, not being portable, having a building. And this should have been the greatest. I mean, we should
the pinnacle.
Get into that building and here we are, we've arrived.
Yeah.
And we both get in the building and it was awesome, but it was okay, Lord, what's next?
Now what? Right.
What's next?
Yeah. I saw a quote. This is going back, gosh, I want to say 11 years ago. This is how impactful. This is when I think social media is really great. I saw a quote on Facebook and it said, accept the things that you cannot change or change the things that you cannot accept. And I literally that day I went in and I resigned from my corporate position because there were so many things that I could not accept. And there were so many things that they wouldn't let me change that I was like, well, I could change one thing. And that is, here are my keys, here are my credit card, and here's my notice, right?
Were you scared to death Or no, you were resolute in your decision?
I think I was resolute because I didn't love it there. And I didn't like how I was being treated. And that's like a song for another day. But I think just like that sometimes is the power of like, we have to take control. Like, how long are you going to be miserable? Like, how long are you going to complain about where you are? At some point, you have to take the responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And here's the thing, like, this is actually what led us to plant the church to begin with, was because I was feeling exactly what you were feeling. I wasn't being treated poorly, but there were just things that I knew based on where I was, that I would always hear things, I'd go to a conference and they would say, well, if there's things about your organization, if you're not the one in charge and, there's things you want to see change, well, then, you have to lead up and trickle up, and I was like, okay, well, I've been trying to up and it's not making it,
Yeah.
And so there were just some things that I wanted to see, look different. And so that's when that vision started. But it wasn't just, and I've said this a million times to people, I said, it can't be, a vision is not what you're wanting to leave behind. It needs to be what you're running toward.
That's good. Yeah.
And so there were a couple of years there when I was still youth pastoring where I was like, if I left now, it would just be, I'm just running from something.
Mm-hmm.
We had a guest not that long ago, and he said, you can't be running from something. You have to be running toward
it. Yeah.
Something.
But you know what I think's actually worse than that is running from it or running toward it is that when you just settle and you just sit there, because I think of like, let's just talk maybe the average American worker, right? Let's say they've got a $65,000 job. I don't know what the average American worker makes, but they're like, I'm not going to risk anything because of this $65,000 job.
Right.
Right. And so in the meantime, they're missing out on these opportunities that could be in front of them that would change their life, change their bank account, change their purpose, change their legacy.
And they'll never know.
And wait, yeah, you never know.
They'll never know.
They'll never know.
What is scarier, what you might lose or what you might miss out on?
Well, I think that's a question people have to ask themselves, right? If they're in a season, and I'm sure you guys have asked yourself that question, like, we're in this season, what's scarier? And that could be something that our listeners can take action on right now. Like, which is scarier, staying or going? It's that old, my dad used to teach me, write the pros and cons list.
Yeah.
Which list is longer, the pros or the cons? And I've used that a million times in my life. You've got to ask yourself the hard questions.
Of course, then there's, you start questioning things like calling and those sorts of things. And that's been, and that's not just a ministry thing. Some people can feel called to their nonprofit or to, a particular position or job or career or whatever. But for me, that was part of what I was grappling with as well when I was thinking about what's next. It's like, well, did I miss something? Was I supposed to do this? And that's when I finally, and this was probably a few years ago that I realized this. I was like, I know we were called to plant this church.
100%.
I don't know, and now I realize I wasn't. I don't know that I was called to manage it beyond starting it. Now, getting started is more than opening the doors on day one. There's self-sustaining.
It's a business. Yeah. I mean, it's
getting things going. And so, I think the first 5, 6, 7 years, that was probably my sweet spot.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's about the time that I guess we met y'all. And, that was probably around 2019 and things started, just being called into question a little bit in my mind.
Well, that's actually a great segue into something I wanted to ask you. As you think about this journey, how has your understanding of calling and purpose shifted over the years?
So calling doesn't just mean one thing.
That's right.
I
agree.
I knew that I was called to ministry years and years ago, back in college. Remember the moment. And it was a moment in time for me because, there was nothing else that I was running towards. And, my mom would always encourage me. You know, she loved Jesus, loved studying scripture. She loved the idea of having, you know, somebody in ministry, and that was never on my radar. And then there was just a moment in time, and I knew that I was called to do that. And yet we're all called to ministry. We're all called as believers, as Christians anyway, we're called to do that. You know, but for me, it was specific. It was vocational ministry. But then, you know, it began to evolve. You know, it was like, well, I'm called. The call, you know, calling can look different. And then sometimes, you know, it's okay for it not to be a calling, and for you to just volunteer for it. You know, I remember Andy in that years and years ago. He said, I don't know if I was called to ministry or not, but one day I asked my dad. I said, would it be okay if I just volunteered to do ministry?
Love that.
I was like, and that made me feel so much better, because, you know, people are always, it's like, I don't know, am I called? Did God speak to you in a cloud? How do you know? And it's just not always like that. Sometimes it's just that what just can you keep bumping into, you keep wrestling with, you keep grappling with, the stars seem to be aligning. That might be a calling.
Yeah.
And for me, I'll tell you that when I think calling, again, purpose, what my purpose is. I would have said, I mean, I got a master's in counseling. I went to school because I thought we're going to change the world by impacting people. And I would have thought my calling was going to be something fancy in some job. That's what I would have said when I was 22.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, 7 kids later, a family. For me, calling is not a job, but it could be. Like, I could see myself in any company, in any position, my purpose.
Which makes this really difficult, because she could imagine doing just about anything.
But my purpose is to add value to people. And it is to tell somebody else, hey, I have spoken with you. We met together, and I just want to call out your gifts. That is not a calling that involves a certain job.
Right.
That's what happens is people get stuck in a job. Like, my job is to whatever, X, it does not matter the job, but it's like that purpose inside of us, that thing that longs for more, that like, I won't ever be happy just checking a box.
Sure.
Like, it is that finding that calling in your life is the gifting. It's like a gifting inside of you.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think that if people, no matter what position they have, what job they work for, what career, but finding whatever it is, how God created you uniquely, no matter faith. I mean, that's the other part, is it's not related. It's just, I believe God created me with different gifts, and ours are literally polar opposite. I've listened to y'all and I always laugh, because Missy is me. She is like, everything. And Macy's like, let's organize. Like, we need to talk. Like, hey.
Yes, you know us well.
Oh, and like, I am Missy, and this over here, Macy. And so it's funny, but then we've connected with you guys, and like, I gain wisdom and knowledge from both of you, because God created you different.
That's
y'all,
right.
The gaps thing. Is that going to be your favorite quote of all time?
It might be. It might be.
You got gaps.
Together we got no gaps.
Together we got no gaps.
But it's the power of partnership.
It is the power, and it is what makes it exciting about the future for us, because we are made so differently.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, hey, I can tell you who's going to handle the organization stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Let me ask you this, as kind of we get to the backside of the episode. How much growth is happening, and how is it showing up? Growth in your marriage, growth in your family, personal growth, like
growth in your faith.
Yeah. Can you it may be difficult to define, but I really want our leaders to understand that growth is happening even in the middle, even in the waiting. What might that growth look like for you all?
Great question, Macy.
Well, thank you.
It is, and that's big. I mean, that's so big, because we're always growing, right?
Yeah. Well, we should be, at least.
We should be, yeah.
Well, something is growing. It may not be in the right direction, but growth is painful. Growth is change. But it's not, you know, when we planted the church years ago, I remember, you know, one of the quotes that would get thrown around is healthy things grow, healthy things grow. I remember thinking, yeah, but unhealthy things grow too. You know,
like,
weeds grow pretty good.
So
weeds, molds. Yeah.
Yes.
you know, you're growing. I think, and again, it's like all of a sudden quotes keep popping in my head. I remember hearing this years ago as well, is that because experience, right? Experience is what helps you grow. Oh, well, John Maxwell, he says this all the time. It's not experience isn't what teaches you, it's evaluated experience.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing right now. And so we're trying to evaluate where we've been, what has brought us to where we are,
what we can change.
Because I mean, it has been extremely rocky for me personally. Just internal stuff, mind, negative thoughts, invasive thoughts, like that has been my battlefield for the last few years, and it has played into part of this. And so we're still in the middle of like figuring this out, but I do know it's painful.
Yeah, growth is big.
It can be. Sure.
It can be.
I think
why they call it growing pains.
Like when you think about a seed, what has to happen to a seed, it has to break open.
That's right.
There's a lot of pain, and at an atomic level, there's all kinds of things happening, and it's intense, and that is what we experience.
Yeah.
But
so good.
It will either wreck us, or we can allow it to shape us into who we are. And I mean, the truth is, we don't grow a whole lot during the easy seasons.
No.
Right.
Right.
We're just too good at being lazy.
That comfort zone.
Yeah. I love the idea, though. I love the idea of an intentional rest period. Missy and I also, we often talk to the leaders that we train. You've got to slow down to go fast, because in today's world, there's not a lot of slow down time, and you have to be intentional.
Yeah, I don't know that it's,
about it.
I mean, it should be.
It is.
As much as it is space. You've got to create space.
Yeah. Well, that's so good. And for our listeners, it's time to share the big idea for the week. If you only take one thing from this episode, let it be this: growth requires movement, right? Movement requires action, and action requires trust. Sometimes it's easy to feel stuck because we're scared, but we aren't planted permanently like a tree. We're designed like those seeds to step into new seasons, even when it feels uncertain. Trust is often the bridge between where you are and where you're supposed to be next.
Yeah. I mean, your current situation is not your final destination. Just because you're resting or stepping back or slowing down, you are not stuck. And movement isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like resting. Sometimes it looks like reevaluating. Sometimes it looks like preparing. And even a quiet season can be full of purpose if you just trust the process.
Yes.
So, Trip and Rebecca, we want to ask you, if our listeners want to take one action step right now connected to today's quote, if you don't like where you are, move, you're not planted, you're not a tree. What is one action step that our listeners, what would you encourage them to do today?
Talk to somebody you trust.
That's good.
I mean, if you're a Christian,
counsel.
The obvious thing would be, well, you need to be praying about this, and but I think seeking wise counsel, not a yes man,
right?
But also not the ultimate discourager either.
Yes,
those aren't real.
Those dream stealers, Trip.
Yes. Man, just joy suckers is the way.
Yeah, Rebecca, anything that you would add? So seek good counsel.
Yes. And mine would be that if it's been in the back of your head for 5 years and you've been praying about it, dreaming about it, thinking about it, get it on paper, tell somebody. Like, don't just sit in your misery, because that's what people do. I hear people that just sit in their misery. Quit sitting in it. You're not stuck.
We hear it all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's called a calling, because that call is not going to go away. right? If you don't answer the call, it's gonna keep ringing. For sure.
Well, thank you both so much for being here and sharing your hearts and your leadership journey, and quite honestly, your trust in the bigger story that God is writing. Before we let you go, how can our leaders stay connected with you?
Okay, so this is one of those, because we're in transition, it'll be interesting.
Okay.
So follow along because it could change. Right now, the thing that we're most connected through is on social media, the Camo Preacher, which is funny because he'll still be the Camo Preacher, even if he's not a pastor or, but we're very into the outdoors and like bringing our family around the outdoors and like, doing things. We live in the country. And so the Camo Preacher is our most used. We can also put a link in the profile.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. I think the Camo Preacher needs a podcast.
Oh, yes, I agree.
I'm just saying.
It's something,
it's on the list.
It's in there.
It's on the list. I see it. I feel it's coming.
I do too, Macy. Way to speak it. And we always love to ask our guest, what's your favorite leadership quote? So we'll start with you, Rebecca. What's your favorite leadership quote?
Okay, so we both are terrible at favorites because we are like the living house of quotes. So coming up with one, right? Very difficult. I will tell you this, though. This one, I would say, is one in this season. So that people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Yes. That's a good one.
Because, man, that quote is just right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Trip, do you have one?
Yeah, for me, it's a life principle, really, and it's Andy Stanley. But if there's one thing that has continued to come back over and over and over and over and over again, it's direction, not intention, determines destination. What we've been talking about. You may want to get here, but if you're not moving in that direction, you'll never get there.
Yeah, you have to know where you're going, and
that will apply to every part of your life.
Absolutely. And listeners, do you have a favorite leadership quote? Let us know, and we might spotlight it on a future episode.
And we'll be back next week with another quote and more leadership insights. And you know what we're going to do, bestie? We're going to talk about it. Thank you.
All right. Have a great one. Thank you, Trip and Rebecca. Bye, bestie.
Bye, bestie. We want to thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, please show us some love by clicking the 3 dots to download the podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating on your podcast app and talk about it with other leaders to help them find the show from any of the major podcast apps. We'd love for you to follow us on social media too. Mpactful with an M _ messages on Instagram and Mpactful Messages on LinkedIn.